Having female leaders in positions of influence to serve as role models is not only critical to the career advancement of women, but stands to generate broader societal impacts on pay equity, changing workplace policies in ways that benefit both men and women, and attracting a more diverse workforce. So many reasons for us at dentsu to found the Her community, having equal rights. Bathilde Meulenbelt, welcome back.
Yeah.
Insights,
thank you for having me.
Insights and Effectiveness Consultant at dentsu Media. So excited you're here. You are one of the founding, drivers, right? The driving forces behind the Her community. And you're diving into the topic of female representation in the media, right? In advertising.
Yeah, more of an external view. Yeah.
And I think there's so much to learn for us. So, maybe you can just start with telling us a little bit about, what is the status of the representation of females?
Definitely. So, actually, there has been big steps made in the last few years. So when we're just looking at the quantitative numbers, representation of females is not that bad, because actually right now 46% of the people that we see in advertisements are female. So those numbers actually look pretty good, right?
Yeah, on paper.
On paper, yes. So the problem is more in the quality of the representation. So, for example, women less often play a prominent role. They have less screen time than men, less speaking time than men. So that's really where the problem lies. Yeah. Also, really, in the kind of woman that's represented in these advertisements, right? So.
Like stereotyping?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's more, you see a similar type of woman in advertisements. There was this recent research that showed that up to 40% of the Dutch women don't recognize themselves in the female that's presented in advertisements.
It's a high number.
Yeah. We really need more diversity on, let's say, for example, age or body type or ethnicities. Yeah. That's really where, representation is lacking a lot. Yeah.
And what about stereotypes?
It's a very stereotypical image, mostly about when a woman is portrayed in advertisements. And that's not pretty surprising, because you only have on average 60 seconds or 30 seconds to tell a whole story in a commercial.
Exactly.
So it's not surprising that we rely on easy to understand stereotypes of women, because it just makes the story a lot easier to tell. Yeah.
And what kind of stereotypes do we then still see?
I'm glad you asked, because there's actually a really interesting research done not that long ago. It was 2019, about a bunch of Ster commercials. And they researched how women were portrayed. And they recognized 3 pretty distinct stereotypes of females in Dutch TV commercials. So one of them was the nurturing woman, taking care of the children and household. That was a pretty common one.
Yeah.
Then, of course, the woman that has it's only for the appearance, a sex object almost. Or it was a very passive or supportive woman, without any decision-making power. Yeah.
Hey, and what is in your view, stereotyping, but what is the disadvantage of stereotyping? Why should we be so careful with stereotyping?
Yeah, well, here I want to quote an author and feminist. She's called Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And she said, the problem with stereotypes is not that they are not true, but they are incomplete. They tell only one side of a story. So, of course, a woman can be a sexy woman. Of course, a woman can be a mother. It's not untrue. The problem is that that when you have a long-term exposure to these stereotypes, they cause these assumptions to become deeply ingrained into our brains as associations and concepts. And I've said it before, we are in the business of visibility. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
lots of opportunity, right?
Yes,
to change.
Lots of opportunity to change, but also lots of responsibility for us, because if we only show these stereotyped images of women in advertising, it's kind of our responsibility to show that women can be more than that, more than these 3 pretty common stereotypes. Yeah.
So, okay, and what about male stereotypes? Do you still see those as well?
Of course, yeah. This is not only a problem that limits itself to women. There are male stereotypes too, and we need to work on that too. But it's less of a problem because these stereotypes tend to be a lot more positive. Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Yeah. The same research also had like 3 stereotypes for men that they recognized. And those are like the strong technical man and the sporty man who loves action.
Yeah.
We saw that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think the most common one, the breadwinner, the responsible man. Men are actually portrayed working 2 times more often than women in Dutch TV commercials.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they talk about power and success 3 times more often. So that's really where this balance lies. Yeah. It's really about the quality of representation that, some improvements still can be made.
Yeah. And I heard you say in the beginning that you do, or based on what you've read, the researches that were done, we see that there's improvements over the last couple of years. So where do we see those improvements? Is that more in the speaking time, or is that in the number of female representation, or less stereotyping, or do we know?
The improvements that have been made in the last years are mostly, the biggest improvements were in numbers, right? Yeah. Just the amount of women versus the amount of men on screen, we saw a lot of improvements on that one. Yeah. Also in diversity across the board. Yeah. But it still lacks, or improvement can be made on the quality of how we show, like the broad range of women. For example, if you go to the supermarket, look around you, look at the types of women you see there versus the women you see on advertisements. Yeah. That's where we still have to work towards.
And so you were mentioning that we have a responsibility as an agency. Yes. Do you believe that we as agencies within the advertising industry are taking already enough responsibility? Or, well, no, that's not the right word I should use. We know we're not doing enough, right? But do you believe there has been an increase in awareness? Are we doing the right steps? Are we making improvements?
There's actually been a research about that too in the Netherlands among media professionals, media makers. And they did see an increase in awareness of the importance of a well-balanced female-to-male representation. But super interesting about that was that a lot of media professionals also mentioned that they didn't think it was their role or responsibility to make sure we put out less stereotyped ads out into the world. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is remarkable, maybe the right word to use. Obviously, working a lot with clients, I think there's also a responsibility for us, right? To ensure that we create that awareness. Is that something that you see happening already a little bit more over the last couple of years?
I think, in my personal opinion, is that we could do that more. Of course, it's already happening, but you said it before. Yeah. We're on a good road, but we can still. Okay, the awareness is there now. Now we need to, speak up more. Maybe. Yeah. It's a difficult conversation to have with clients. Or with each other. Maybe even harder when you're the only woman in the room. Or men. I think it's also the responsibility for men to be critical, to take a critical look onto what you're putting out into the world. And actually, it's not only beneficial for society to put more unstereotyped ads out into the world. Research has proven that these unstereotyped commercials are actually a lot more effective too, up to 25%.
Well, look at
so you're helping your clients. Which I guess makes sense because. What I said before, right now, a lot of women don't recognize themselves in the females that are shown in these advertisements. So, it makes a lot of sense that when you put somebody up there that looks like you, that they're more effective.
Hey, and you mentioned that it's quite uncomfortable still to speak up, in particular when you're the only one noticing something. Do you see there slight improvement already, and what will be the main driver to create that sense of safety?
Well, the instances that I have been in a situation like that is when you're in a meeting, it's hard and might not be the right place. But in those situations, I felt really comfortable talking to another woman after the meeting or after a presentation or of a new creative, for example, and just talk with them like, how was it just me, or did you thought this was a little much?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's really the community feel, again, coming back to it.
Right?
Yeah, connectiveness. Yeah. It would also really help if men would be a little more aware of this. Yeah. Because I don't think it's bad intent. Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's not bad intent. It's just harder to recognize, I think, if you don't live the reality.
Well, I think the theme today truly is awareness. So I'd like to thank you for really, being so passionate about this topic and working hard to create some awareness, making improvements at dentsu. I think there's so much more to talk about, but definitely. I look forward to hopefully an event. I'd love to see you on stage as one of those subject matter experts, at least someone who's really driven to make a difference. So again, thank you for today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Thanks.